What if everything you were taught about where Europeans came from was only half the story? Finland sits in the heart of Northern Europe. Cold forests, long winters, a quiet, proud nation. From the outside, it looks like any other European country. But look closer, and something doesn't add up. Every country around Finland, Sweden, Norway, Russia, Germany, their languages are all connected. They share roots. They belong to the same family. But Finnish? Finnish is completely different. It doesn't come from Europe at all. It belongs to a language family rooted thousands of miles to the east, deep in Siberia. And here's where it gets interesting. In 2018, a team of scientists from the Max Planck Institute in Germany and the University of Helsinki in Finland extracted DNA from ancient bones, a 3,500-year-old burial on the Kola Peninsula in Russia, and a 1,500-year-old water burial right here in Finland. What they found inside those bones quietly destroyed the official story of this nation's origins. Before we go into what they found, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching this from right now? Drop your country in the comments below. And have you ever done a DNA ancestry test? What did it show you? Because what Finland's DNA revealed is something that even scientists did not expect. Inside Finnish DNA, there is a signal that doesn't belong to Europe. Scientists call it Siberian ancestry, and it doesn't appear in tiny amounts. In some Finnish populations, especially in the East, it is one of the strongest ancestry components in the entire genome. Dr. Physias Lamnidis, co-first author of the study published in the journal Nature Communications, said this clearly. He said that there was a strong genetic connection between ancient Finnish people and ancient Siberian populations, suggesting that these ancient Siberians may have shared languages, cultural behaviors, and even survival strategies with the people of Finland, despite being separated by thousands of miles. And his co-senior author, Dr. Stefan Schiffels, also from the Max Planck Institute in Germany, said something that surprised even the research team. He said, and these are his words, "We were surprised to find that the oldest samples studied here had the highest proportion of Siberian ancestry. The oldest bones, the most Siberian DNA, not the other way around." And then something even more unexpected appeared in the data. This same Siberian signal, the exact same genetic marker, also runs through the DNA of Finland's indigenous Sámi people. Two very different groups. One identical ancient signal, which means this story doesn't start in Finland at all. It starts somewhere else entirely. And to find where, you have to go back 4,000 years to one of the fastest migrations in all of human prehistory. Between the years 2200 and 1900 BC, something extraordinary happened across northern Eurasia. Advanced bronze technology, spearheads, cast axes, ceremonial knives, appeared at the same time across a corridor stretching from Mongolia all the way to Scandinavia. Thousands of miles, multiple countries, all at once. This is called the Scimitar-Bino phenomenon, and it wasn't a slow cultural spread. This was fast. Within 2 or 3 generations, highly mobile groups of people crossed the entire breadth of northern Eurasia, moving along rivers, through frozen forests, into territories that had no name yet. These were not conquerors. They didn't build empires. They were craftsmen and traders, people who carried fire, metal, and entirely new bloodlines into populations that had never seen them before. And they carried the Siberian genetic signal with them. Dr. Lamnidis and his team traced this migration path through the Kola Peninsula in northwestern Russia, showing that the genetic signal appeared there first, approximately 4,000 years ago, and then spread into mainland Finland over the following centuries. But here's the question that changes everything. When these Siberian migrants arrived in Finland, who was already living there? And what happened to them? The answer is buried in Iron Age graves. And it is not what anyone expected. Finland was not empty when the Siberian migrants arrived. It had been home to Stone Age hunter-gatherers for thousands of years before any outside group set foot in the region. These were not primitive people. They were skilled hunters, fishermen, and survivors, people who had lived in one of the harshest environments on Earth for generations. And their DNA did something remarkable. It survived. A joint study by the University of Helsinki and the University of Turku analyzed Iron Age burial sites across Finland and found something that stopped researchers in their tracks. Inside 2 specific burial sites, one at Luostari in southwest Finland and one at Kirkkolanmäki in southern Finland, The bones of people buried over 1,500 years ago carried mitochondrial DNA, directly linking them back to Stone Age hunter-gatherers. People from an era before farming even reached Northern Europe. Think about what that means. By the Iron Age, when Rome was at the height of its power, pockets of Finland were still genetically connected to a world that had ended everywhere else thousands of years before. Finland was not one people. It was a mosaic. Hunter-gatherers in one valley, Siberian lineage communities in the next, and possibly a third group, farmers arriving slowly from the south. 3 different populations, 3 different ancient origins, all living within the same land. But the most extraordinary discovery didn't come from a hilltop burial or a grave mound. It came from a lake, a water grave in western Finland, where human bones had been sitting underwater for 15 centuries. And when scientists finally pulled the DNA from those bones, everything changed again. Levenluda, a site in western Finland that confused archaeologists for over 100 years. Skulls of nearly 100 individuals, mostly women and children, found submerged in the water of an Iron Age spring. Some thought it was a sacrificial site. Some thought it was a burial ground used during a catastrophe. No one could agree. In 2010, a research group at the University of Helsinki, led by docent Anna Westman, decided to try again, this time using modern ancient DNA technology to sequence the genomes of these waterlogged remains. The lab work was not easy. Docent Jukka Palo, who led the DNA analysis at the University of Helsinki, later said, "Inability to repeat even our own results was utterly frustrating. The methods had to develop alongside the research itself in cooperation with international labs. But when the results finally came through, they were worth every year of effort. The genomes of 3 Levenluda individuals clearly resembled those of the modern Sámi people. The present-day Sámi live hundreds of miles north of this site. But 1,500 years ago, in the era of early medieval Europe, their ancestors were here, in western Finland, being buried under the water of a spring." Docent Palo said, "We understood this quite early, but it took long to confirm these findings. Something happened after that. Migration pressure, displacement, gradual conquest. Something pushed the Sámi population northward over the following centuries, out of the south, deeper into the Arctic. Their southern homeland was absorbed, forgotten, built over. The Sámi have oral traditions about a lost southern homeland. Scientists had dismissed these as stories. Levenluda proved they were memories. And now a question appeared that no one in the field had fully prepared for. The Siberian signal, running through Finnish DNA, through Sámi DNA. How far east does it actually trace? Because when geneticists followed it all the way to its source, they didn't find just an ancient tribe. They found a connection to the ancestors of an entirely different continent. This is the part of the story that almost no one talks about. The ancient Siberian populations who carried their DNA into Finland, they are not an isolated mystery group. They belong to a broader ancient lineage called the Ancient North Eurasian Ancestry. And this lineage connects directly to the populations that, thousands of years ago, crossed the Bering Land Bridge and became the ancestors of Native Americans. This is not a loose comparison. It is a measurable, sequenced, published genetic connection. Dr. Physias Lamnidis and the Max Planck team confirmed this in their 2018 Nature Communications paper. The Siberian ancestry component found in Finnish and Sámi DNA is part of the same ancient North Eurasian gene pool that contributed to the founding population of the Americas. A Finnish person today and a descendant of an ancient Native American population share a distant common ancestor, a group of people who lived somewhere in Siberia, possibly over 15,000 years ago, before the world split them apart. One branch crossed the Bering Land Bridge and moved south into the Americas. Another branch moved west, through the taiga, through the rivers, through the cold, and reached the forests of what is now Finland. Then in 2025, researchers at Harvard University went even further. They published a new study tracing the origin of the Uralic language family, which includes Finnish, Estonian, and Hungarian, to a founding population in Yakutia, in northeastern Siberia, near the Arctic Ocean. This population existed over 4,000 years ago, and from that single location, they spread in every direction across the northern half of the world. But this migration left more than ancestry behind. It left something inside Finnish bodies that took medical science centuries to notice, and that is now being used to change medicine for the entire world. Finland has 36 rare genetic diseases that are almost unknown anywhere else on Earth. They are collectively called the Finnish disease heritage, conditions that barely appear in medical databases outside of Finland. Neurological disorders, metabolic diseases, conditions passed down through generations in Finnish families that doctors in other countries had never seen before. Why does Finland carry these diseases alone? Because of what happened to its population thousands of years ago. The FinnGen project, the largest genomic study in Finnish history, which has now sequenced the genomes of over 500,000 Finnish people, has studied this in detail. According to the FinnGen researchers, a strong founding bottleneck occurred approximately 120 generations ago. That means Finland's entire population collapsed down to a very small group of survivors, and then expanded again rapidly. When that happens, every rare mutation those few survivors were carrying gets passed down to every generation that follows. It doesn't disappear. It multiplies. Professor Arno Palotai, scientific director of the FinnGen project at the University of Helsinki, has explained that the goal is to use this unusual genetic makeup as a tool. He said the FinnGen project utilizes this genetic isolation to understand disease mechanisms and produce medical innovation that benefits people worldwide. In plain terms, Finland's genetic isolation, caused by ancient bottlenecks in migration, has turned the Finnish gene pool into a research laboratory. Diseases that would be invisible in a large mixed population are amplified and visible in Finland, making it easier for scientists to find the genes that cause them, and eventually, to find ways to treat them. A nation forged by isolation and survival is now helping save lives across the planet. But when this science became public, when ordinary Finnish people started reading what their DNA actually said about their origins, it didn't just spark curiosity. It sparked a conflict. For centuries, Finland told a specific story about itself. A proud Nordic nation, ancient forest people, a culture shaped by cold, solitude, and the land. The Finnish national epic, the Kalevala, painted a picture of a people with deep, unbroken roots in the north of Europe. Then DNA science began publishing its findings. Siberian ancestry, Sámi ancestors living in the south just 1,500 years ago. A founding bottleneck that collapsed the population to near extinction. Hunter-gatherer DNA surviving into the Iron Age. A genetic link to Native American ancestry. And people had to decide what to do with all of it. Some researchers and academics said this enriched Finnish identity, that it showed Finland as the meeting point of multiple ancient worlds, a place where Siberia, Europe, and the Deep Stone Age all came together. Something to be proud of. Others pushed back. The data was questioned. The framing was debated. National identity is not a simple thing. It does not bend easily when science points in an unexpected direction. But here is the truth that no one can argue with. The people buried at Luostari and Kirkkolanmäki and Levenlutta had no concept of Finland. They did not think of themselves as Finnish or Sámi or Siberian. They were simply people, living, surviving, burying their dead, passing on their blood to children who would live in a world they could never have imagined. DNA does not carry a flag. It carries a journey. And the scientists were not done. They went back even further, analyzing ancient paternal lines, Y chromosome data, going deeper into the soil of Finnish history than anyone had gone before. And what they found in those oldest layers answered the last remaining question and raised one final, much larger one. A 2024 study from the University of Helsinki analyzed Y chromosome data from Finnish men, tracing the paternal line of Finland's population all the way back through prehistory. The result confirmed what the earlier mitochondrial DNA studies had suggested, but now laid out in full, clear detail. Modern Finns descend from at least 3 genetically distinct founding populations. First, the Stone Age hunter-gatherers, who were living in Finland for thousands of years before anyone arrived from outside. Second, the Siberian migrants of the Bronze Age, who came carrying the Siberian ancestry signal from the east, following the path traced through the Kola Peninsula. Third, European farmers who arrived later from the south, bringing different ancestry and different ways of living. No single group won. No single migration erased the others. Every layer left its mark. Modern Finnish DNA is all three of these populations, layered on top of each other, mixed together over thousands of years. This research was built on a collaboration between the University of Helsinki, the University of Turku, and the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History in Germany, the most comprehensive ancient DNA investigation of Finnish history ever assembled. There is a Finnish word, sisu. It has no direct translation in English. It means something like grit, inner fire, the refusal to stop even when everything is against you. Finns use it to describe their national character. And perhaps it makes sense that this word exists here, because the people who became Finnish, they survived a collapse that nearly wiped them out. They survived migrations, displacements, bottlenecks, and centuries of isolation. That kind of history does not just shape a culture. It may shape something deeper. But the Siberian signal, the one that started this entire story, it doesn't end in Finland. Scientists traced it back to its source. And what they found there opens one last door that this video cannot close. In July 2025, researchers at Harvard University published a study that pushed the origins of Finnish ancestry further than any previous research had reached. They confirmed that the ancestors of all Uralic language speakers, the people whose descendants became Finnish, Estonian, and Hungarian, came from a single founding population in Yakutia, northeastern Siberia, right at the edge of the Arctic Ocean, over 4,000 years ago. From that one place, one small population in the frozen northeast corner of Asia, people moved outward in every direction. Some moved south and eventually became the ancestors of Hungarians. Some moved west along the Baltic coast and became Estonians. Some moved northwest, through forests with no roads, along rivers with no names, through winters that lasted 9 months, and became Finnish. They carried their language, they carried their genes, and they carried something else, a resilience built into them by the harshest environment on Earth. Right now, in Yakutia, there are people who share the same deep genetic markers as a Finnish person sitting in Helsinki. They have never met. They share no history, no culture, no memory of each other. But somewhere inside their cells, the same ancient signal is present. Two peoples, two ends of the world. One unbroken biological thread stretching across 4,000 years. The FinnGen project is still running. Researchers are still sequencing. New studies are still being published. And with each one, the picture of Finnish origins becomes more detailed, more layered, and more surprising. DNA does not lie. It does not forget. It carries every migration, every collapse, every survival across every generation, whether the people who inherited it know about it or not. Finland's genome is still whispering a story that began at the edge of the Arctic world, crossed an entire continent, survived near extinction twice, and still hasn't finished moving. The question was never really where the Finnish people came from. The question is, how many other nations are carrying secrets just like this one? And has anyone looked closely enough at yours?